Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Nealand. I'm the CEO of Cult Collective. We're a customer engagement agency headquartered here in Calgary, Alberta, and we service a couple dozen clients across North America. I'm going to spend about 30 to 40 minutes sharing with you some thoughts around the new customer journey and how leading brands are creating fanatical followings and ludicrous loyalty by doing some things differently than non-cult-like brands. A paradigm shift is really defined as a fundamental change in our basic assumptions. Try to imagine the world, the impact on society when we learned that the planet that we lived on was no longer flat. That paradigm was dispelled, and that radical notion that the Earth was round and not flat sent shockwaves across a host of institutions, and it resulted in many fascinating endeavors that literally helped discover new lands and new people and new fortunes. Well, there's growing consensus among marketing strategists that this popular marketing paradigm, most often referred to as the purchase funnel or the buying cycle, is as flawed as us believing that the Earth is flat. Now, you got to consider that this theory was introduced back in 1898. The last major refinement to it by scholars was in 1924. So it hasn't been improved much despite the advances in technology and media and demographics and the global economy. Unfortunately, most corporate executives, especially those with marketing degrees, grew up believing that this was truth and were taught it in their college and graduate programs. But we are faced with a new marketing paradigm, one that I'm going to share with you in a minute. And despite a ton of evidence to prove its validity, companies are still filled with a lot of old dogs who have very little interest in learning new tricks. Some marketing leaders are either too risk adverse, or maybe they're in denial, or maybe they're just too complacent and uninterested in championing change. I remember one of the most frustrating professional assignments I've ever had was working with the C-suite at Blockbuster just before their demise. And it's not that they were oblivious to emerging competitors like Netflix and Redbox, but they failed to comprehend the disruptive impact of those alternative business models. And they believed their number one enemy was Hollywood video, and they used a lot of traditional marketing strategies to combat them, when instead they should have been more worried about their outdated marketing practices. I believe that the better approach would have been the Starbucks CMO, who I knew back in 2009, when they were dealing with the full brunt of the recession. They literally threw their marketing playbook against the wall and said, scratch everything. We're blowing it up and we're rethinking everything we thought we knew. And obviously they've emerged from the recession much more successfully than Blockbuster did. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about this new marketing paradigm. It's really taken from a model published by Harvard researchers back in 2009. They studied over 20,000 consumers in 3 different countries, shopping in 5 different categories: cars, electronics, cosmetics, insurance, and telephone services. And what they found is that instead of the 7 phases that was described in the previous purchase funnel model, there are really only 4 moments that matter. So let's dive into those for a moment. First, this is how they visualize the new purchase cycle, and ironically, it looks much more like a cycle than the purchase funnel does. And they state that consumers first consider an initial set of brands based on the brand perceptions they have and the exposure that they've seen to recent brand touch points. Most often this stage is referred to as awareness, and I concede that mass advertising remains a viable option for brands that want to always be top of mind. But the real new news here is that far fewer brands are considered than initially believed. The idea was kind of elaborated better in a book by Barry Schwartz called The Paradox of Choice. It basically states that because of the proliferation and the commoditization of products and services, as we begin to shop, we actually want to consider fewer, not more, options. So the other idea introduced by Harvard was this idea of recency. Gone are the days of seeing a commercial a month ago, or getting something in the mail a week ago, or seeing a banner ad a day ago and us remembering it. We're bombarded with over 2,000 marketing stimuli a day now, and we simply can't process it all, so we don't retain information like we used to. So only once a person is actually in market to buy should we ever turn our messaging on. Everything else that we do is a waste. Admittedly, that's easier said than done. It's why Google is the most profitable company on the planet as far as marketing revenue goes. It's because they excel at identifying buyers when they're actively looking to buy. But there are other ways to go about this. For example, I used to work with Select Comfort. They're the makers of the Sleep Number bed. And we try to host different tactics to really identify when people are bed shopping. Their competitors selling mattresses were really just bombarding the airwaves, being on 52 weeks of radio, being in every weekly newspaper with an ROP ad, hoping that somebody that was listening was in the market to buy a bed. And Select Comfort was very surgical, leveraging data to identify different types of purchase triggers like a move or a marriage or a divorce or a pregnancy or a back pain, and they would use that data to send their collateral. The second component of the Harvard New Purchase Pathway is absolutely counter to the original paradigm. Harvard says that we actually add brands as we go through the evaluation phase instead of narrow them down. So the whole visual metaphor of a funnel is really completely false. For example, they learned that when we start car shopping, we start with 2 or 3 models that we're interested in, and as we go through the evaluation phase, we end up with 6 models. So the number of options is actually doubled. They state that you might start the process looking for a 4-door mid-price sedan, but as you start using the internet and friends and visiting dealerships, you end up thinking about things like warranties and financing and fuel economy that actually makes the buying decision more complicated. This whole notion has birthed a completely new marketing discipline that's very vogue right now called inbound marketing, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. The stage 3 of the Harvard model is the most similar because at some point we all have to buy something. But there is some new news here as well. Certainly the way that we pay, how we pay has evolved. And perhaps the most dramatic difference is the fact that in 30 to 50% of the time, we haven't even made up our minds what we want when we enter the third phase. So the old model would assume that we've made our decision prior to visiting the store and that we do the store visit simply as a transactional relationship to pick up the item. And Harvard says no, upwards of half the time we remain confused and we just decide to go and make a decision on the spot. And that has huge implications in terms of point of sale materials, merchandising strategies, associate and customer service training as well. Finally, this fourth stage, this post-purchase experience, didn't even exist in the original purchase funnel. That ended with purchase, and Harvard says no, at least 25% of the equation happens after you buy the product, and you have this ongoing ownership experience. The experience with that product is what's going to determine whether we buy it again. It will determine whether we become brand ambassadors and find excuses to tell our friends and family about it. So brands can really excel at making the ownership experience exceptional. And if they do so, the people that have purchased or the people whom they influence will skip steps 1 and 2 going forward, and they'll just jump right to step 3, creating much better loyalty and word of mouth. I mentioned the idea of during that second step of the evaluation period, this discipline called inbound marketing has exploded. The original purchase model is overemphasizes the importance of awareness and trying to fill the funnel with prospects. Under that scenario, most marketing efforts should go towards buying media. That's why McDonald's buys media during the lunch hour because people are hungry, or retailers spend most of their media budget in November, December to capitalize on holiday shopping. But in Harvard's new paradigm, marketing is a lot less about trying to guess when your audience is ready to buy. It's a lot more about being there to over-deliver when they actually reach out to you. So it's much more inbound than outbound. It's about being on 24/7, pull versus push. And at the end of the day, it's about having amazing content designed to convert shoppers while they are checking you out. Zappos really is an exceptional example of this. They do very little mass advertising. Instead, they focus on what they call wow experiences. They do that through their online website as well as through their call center. Let's consider an example. If you were searching for Bourne sandals and you happen to use Google as a way to find out more about them and where to buy, you'll see here that Zappos doesn't pay for the paid search words like softmock.com or sandals.pronto.com. Rather, they've organically engineered their site to be optimized for these search engines so that they show up as the number 3 organic choice right after Bourne, the manufacturer themselves. So when somebody clicks on their ad, it literally costs Zappos $0 for that exposure. And when you actually show up to their website, they not only show you 200 different sandals to choose from, but they surround the shopping experience with all this amazing content. So they've got a very attractive customer service policies. They've got amazing shipping, return shipping policies that they've invested in. They also do promotional giveaways. They invest in video content to show the latest trends. They showcase customer ratings and reviews. They cross-sell their other brands. I'm not sure if Glance is a private label brand or they make better margin at it, but they say that they know that you're there for Bourne sandals, but have you considered Glance sandals? And then they showcase other women's outfits that might be a good complement to the shoes that you're shopping for. So Zappos spends all of their time and energy trying to help somebody have a better experience while they're shopping, and they spend very little money trying to get somebody to consider them in the first place. This whole idea called inbound marketing is unfortunately too often an afterthought, and it's grossly underfunded because CMOs mistakenly believe that their job is to create awareness instead of improve conversion. As you can see from this slide, inbound marketing is so much more than just search engine marketing or even promotions. It's really about having an amazing content strategy and really understanding the customer journey and knowing how to intercept customers along the way. And these are the examples of the new types of tricks of the trade that marketers need to have a plan for. Now, fortunately, you don't have to do everything on this slide, but you do need to do some of them, and the ones that you do, you should make sure they are executed as well as your best TV commercial or your most carefully crafted print ad. Let's go on to the third point here. The third point is something that I feel so strongly about that we've actually built an entire agency model around it. The goal of every marketer should really be advocacy, not acquisition. Any business can really go buy customers, but great brands attract cult-like followings. These cult-like brands understand that the ownership experience is so vital that they prioritize retention and referral over prospecting and mass advertising. The original purchase funnel didn't even mention word of mouth or post-purchase behavior, yet it's such a huge part of Harvard's model, taking into account this new marketplace. So we've labeled it an engagement agency, and unlike an ad agency, an engagement agencies are really about catering to active loyalists and helping them tell your story to prospects. We understand that great customer experiences require so much more than just great marketing communications, so we focus on everything from the product to the pricing to the shopping experience to the advertising behind it. Most ad agencies are excellent at coming up with clever messages and then buying media that literally shouts that message at people. And that's very appropriate if all you want to do is to say something interesting. CRM and loyalty marketing and some social media shops have taken a different tack. They've gotten very good at listening and responding by being very interested in what people are actually saying, either saying with their words or saying with their actions and voting with their pocketbooks, if you will. I believe that's a far better option than the first, but there's also now been a fundamental change that questions the relevance of that approach. So This third model, which we consider true engagement, is when people are talking to each other about brands at the same time as tuning those brands out. So they're literally talking about us behind our backs. And brands have a hard time getting a word in edgewise because these consumers are fast forwarding past our commercials, they're opting out of our email list, they're unsubscribing from the newspaper, they're turning off their banner ads. Even if we do get a media strategy that's good enough to get our message in front of them, research has proven that they simply don't believe us anymore. In fact, they're going to believe a complete stranger's online rating and review of our product more than they're going to believe the print ad that we've spent the last month carefully working on. So no matter how awesome I tell them your product is, if somebody gives you a 1 out of 5 stars on their blog and this prospect happens to read it, you're basically screwed. So engagement agencies have to help brands become so interesting and so relevant that core customers can't help but talk about you and say positive things about you to influence all of these prospects on your behalf. You know, Pepsi tried this recently with their Pepsi Refresh project. Last spring, they invested $20 million, so they shifted what they would have spent on their Super Bowl promotions, and they instead invested it in various community outreach programs. And they did all sorts of philanthropic activities, and their customers gave them a host of feedback about what was really important to them. Overall, this campaign received tremendous buzz. The Pepsi Refresh Project website reportedly received over 8 billion page views, but it was terminated a couple of months ago due to what Pepsi called mixed results. I don't think their market share grew to the degree or at the speed with which Pepsi found it appropriate. However, I use this as a good example, and I applaud Pepsi for trying something different. I do think they made 2 fundamental mistakes. First, while $20 million sounds like a lot of money to most of us, it really is a rounding error in terms of Pepsi's total advertising and promotional budget. So the Refresh campaign did not receive the kind of all-in investment that brands like Patagonia or Under Armour have done that really fosters a cult-like marketing effort. And secondly, the Pepsi Refresh project was certainly notable and worthwhile, but it wasn't particularly authentic. It was something that Pepsi did. It wasn't really who Pepsi is. If a brand like Lululemon does something related to health and fitness, it's very normal and natural because that's what Lululemon is. If Sears tried that exact same tactic, it would seem very forced and fake. So if you're going to do something like this, be true to who you really are and shine a spotlight on what you really stand for. It can't just be a gimmick or a tactic. There's a video out called The Naked Brand. It's like a 60-minute documentary that I recommend to you if this sounds like something you'd like to try. The fourth principle that I want to touch on today is less about this new buying cycle introduced by Harvard, but it's more about what I think needs to be a fundamental shift in marketing dollars. The majority of ad budgets today go towards buying eyeballs for all practical purposes. Brands want to get in front of as many of their target audience as possible. But cult-like brands are really much more interested in making an impression than buying impressions. For them, there's a demonstrable shift in where they spend their media dollars from paid versus owned assets. So the problem with owned assets is that the number of them have grown significantly. It used to be pretty easy for marketers to just deal with their in-store presence or their website and consider that their 2 primary owned assets. But now there's literally over a dozen potential owned media assets that marketers can build. And the problem is they don't even have to build it, they have to also maintain it and keep them fresh with content. And that admittedly can be a daunting task, but in my opinion, that juice is well worth the squeeze. The secret to success is not trying to do everything. Pick a few things and do them really, really well. If I was the CMO of a brand that I thought was cult capable, I would prioritize on these 4 assets: your mobile presence, video, social, and experiential. Let me elaborate on those for just a moment. Mobile marketing is absolutely exploding. Smartphones are being adopted at an unprecedented pace, particularly in comparison to other types of technologies. 43 Americans just switched to a smartphone in the time that it took me to read this slide. And by this time next year, half of the entire North American population will be using a smartphone. This adoption rate is pretty cool to think about, but even cooler is the capability of a smartphone. They are going to be bigger game changers for marketers than the television was or the personal computer was. These devices allow for all of the same multimedia capabilities that those other devices do, like the audio and the rich video and the dynamic content delivery. But better yet, they are with us all the time. That literally makes them the holy grail for marketers in our toolbox. Luckily, it's not just marketers who are excited about these. Consumers are using these phones for research and for shopping like never before. These phones are critical search tools when consumers want real-time information. So we should think about that in terms of our website should not only be mobile friendly, but we could even start to see some kind of qualifying questions like, are you shopping right now? We tend to think of these people visiting our web pages, at 10 p.m. when they're in their pajamas, but what's happening is they're actually standing in a store in front of the aisle trying to make a buying decision so we can more quickly qualify that traffic and cater to their needs. Corporations are scrambling to keep up with the consumer demand for mobile-friendly content. When Forbes asked corporate executives what technologies will have the most revolutionary change on their business, the number one answer was mobile applications. So it really begs the question, what should we be doing to capitalize on the mobile app space? Well, I have 3 suggestions for you using a couple of industry examples. First and foremost, think of the mobile phone as a practical app to improve your operations or the customer shopping experience. Walgreens knows that one of the biggest customer pain points is dropping off a prescription and then waiting for 20 or 30 minutes for it to be filled. So they leverage the cameras on the smartphones and allow you to scan your prescriptions in and email those directly to the pharmacist electronically so that all you have to do is swing by and pick it up. Also, anybody that's ever eaten Chipotle at lunch knows that there's typically a pretty long line because these are made to order burritos. So they built a very friendly app that allows you to build your own burrito right there on your phone. It's delivered electronically to your local store. It allows them to assemble it just as if you were in the drive-thru, so that by the time you show up, all you have to do is pay for it and pick it up. If you're not going to be functional, the other thing that you can do is make your brand relevant by providing content that engenders loyalty and helps people understand that you care about their life and their lifestyle as much as they do. So, for example, Pampers has a cool app that helps pregnant mothers understand what's happening with their unborn child, literally every step of the way. So Pampers knows that if they can win over mom before the baby is even born, then they increase the odds of having a customer for life. Similarly, there's lots of outdoor enthusiast brands like REI and Oakley and North Face that have different types of apps for marking hiking trails or determining the snowfall in the mountains for ski reports or finding the best waves if you want to go surfing. So those brands align themselves with their customers' passions and help make them possible. Finally, if those 2 ideas don't float your boat, just go have fun. People like to have fun, and brands need to display a lot more personality. Over half of the top 100 downloaded apps are games, and it's not just teenage boys that are playing these games. One of the single biggest gamer segments is actually soccer moms. So brands should create mobile experiences that are fun and just create some buzz about themselves. Coca-Cola does that well with their Spin the Bottle app. It's very simple and inexpensive, and it kind of speaks to the social aspect of their product. Ford at the most recent auto show had an app that if you hold your phone or your tablet up to the Ford logo on the back of the car, it launches a bunch of virtual content, including a racing game that you can do with your tablet or your phone. What you're really looking for is to get people to give you permission to be in their purse or in their pocket 24/7. And this can be a really powerful thing. Once you're there and you start to build a relationship of trust over time, and you got to make sure it's mutually beneficial. But research recently by Digby reveals that 3 out of the top 5 retailers have mobile apps that ask for permission to know your location. And 4 out of the top 5 retailers have mobile apps that ask permission to actually push a notification to you. So that means that these brands now have the ability to know exactly who you are, where you are, and have permission to send you a message based on your location and the time of day. It really doesn't get much better than that. Let's shift gears here for a second and talk about the second owned asset that everybody should consider. I assume most people listening to this have seen Kmart's Ship My Pants YouTube video. It's just a couple weeks old and it's already received over 16 million views, and it sparked a conversation about Kmart that is nothing short of remarkable. Consider that we're here talking today with top marketing executives from across North America, talking about the most innovative things that people can do, and we're using Kmart as an example. Their last big idea was in 1965 when they introduced the blue light special, so they've been in a bit of a drought, but they literally shocked the world with 30 seconds of potty humor via a YouTube video that has now got us all wondering if Kmart is somehow cool. That is no small feat. The reality is that YouTube is the single biggest content publisher in the universe. More video is uploaded to YouTube in a month than all the major networks have produced in the last 60 years combined. Your customers are flocking to YouTube, and other online players like it by the millions. It's also interesting to note that over 500,000 videos are uploaded each day to Facebook, and it's estimated that about a third of those are very low quality videos that are shot from mobile devices. So what that tells us is that people don't care as much about the production quality. They're really more interested in recency and having something cool to watch. So online video is quickly becoming our preferred means of digesting content. We did a promotion here in Alberta with Harley Davidson to attract first-time motorcycle riders, and we're using online video as an integral part of that campaign. It's a great way to appeal to our audience, and it's also a great way to convey the irreverent nature of the Harley brand. So we're sending a guy riding his motorcycle across the province, and different online visitors can type in suggestions of things that they want this guy to do for the first time. So we'll film him doing these different challenges, stunts like starting a bar fight or eating 20 hot dogs in 2 minutes or tipping over a cow. Irreverent things that we hope will go viral, and it will be content that the client can repurpose throughout the campaign in an effort to attract first-time bike riders, people who are riding a bike for the first time. This online website has already received over 1,000 submissions, and 80% of those are from people who claim that they don't currently ride a motorcycle. So not only are they not Harley riders, it seems to have resonated on this insight of getting people to do things for the first time. The net takeaway really is that video is a big deal. It is compelling, it is motivating, and it can have meaningful business results. PR Web did a study of head-to-head comparison content that was text and images versus content that was delivered via video, and business leads via the phone increased by 18%, leads via the website increased by 55%, leads that went to a store increased by 30%, and people's intention to buy or actual incident of purchase increased by 24%. So I'd say that those are pretty compelling numbers and warrants that brands figure out how to produce video far faster and far cheaper than they're doing today with their highly produced TV spots. The next topic is social media. Most people realize by now that social media has permanently changed consumer behavior. I'm discouraged by how many brands are still really struggling to figure out what to do in the social space. I think eMarketer was onto something when they surveyed people about the best way to improve their loyalty programs, and it revealed that 64% of respondents said that what they really wanted was better social media engagement. So to me, Facebook really isn't just a media outlet for buying banner ads, but rather it's the 21st century's version of a loyalty program. So rather than all those plastic cards that we used to carry in our wallets and earned points when we shopped. Loyalty programs of the future are going to leverage fans and friends and online communities where we have to think of ways for membership to have meaningful privileges. eMarketer's survey also revealed something very interesting. On the left is a list of the things that marketers say are the single most effective tactics that are happening within the social media space, stuff like their blogs and white papers and video. But on the right is a list of things that marketers say is the most difficult things to do, which includes the exact same items that are on the left: blogs, white papers, videos. So it means to me that businesses haven't really invested sufficient resources to figure all this out. We're still too busy trying to squeeze every last drop of effectiveness out of our traditional advertising instead of shifting resources and freeing up bandwidth and dollars to get good at some new tricks of the trade. And we have to have some patience. We can't just try one thing and declare it a success or a failure and then move on. We have to acknowledge that these are new muscles that we're just learning how to flex, and we need some time to let them develop. One of the things that my agency has done to help facilitate and speed up this learning curve for our clients is to invest in social media management technology. So we've partnered with a group from the States to leverage a tool that measures and enables social media campaigns across a variety of platforms. This is a quick dashboard that shows how different hamburger brands, quick serve restaurant brands benchmark in terms of their fan engagement. But you can actually drill down using this dashboard capability to understand what posts are the most popular, which people are saying the most things, who's happy, who's unhappy. And you can benchmark not just your own social media activity, but your competitor's social media activity. And that information is absolutely gold when you start to create an editorial calendar to decide what should we be spending our time talking about. The last thing I want to talk about is this idea of experiential marketing. And I don't believe it gets nearly the kind of love and attention as it should by big brands. The goal is to create meaningful branded experiences with our products beyond just media that we consume. We actually want to be tactile. We want to touch it, see it, taste it, smell it. We seem to get this in the retail space. There's a lot that's been written about creating more experiential retail environments. The best retail brands just released a report this year that continues to talk about this theme of becoming more theatrical, more immersive, being more than just a place to pick something up, but sell a good time, sell a lifestyle. And I think that advice applies to more than just the shopping experience. Nobody, in my opinion, has done this better recently than Red Bull. When they sent Felix Baumgartner up into space last October, they executed what I believe to be a near flawless experiential brand campaign. The stunt was perfectly aligned with their brand of extreme energy. It was properly executed, properly marketed. It received the most ever concurrent YouTube views. It was picked up by dozens of large media networks, all for free. They leveraged this stunt to capture customer data. They added over 2 million new email subscribers. They added millions of new Facebook followers. I tried, but was unsuccessful in trying to figure out what Red Bull spent to do this stunt. I'm confident it wasn't cheap, but I'm sure it was also less expensive than what many brands do, doing traditional TV commercials and buying traditional media. And those things don't deliver nearly the kind of goodwill, impressions, and return on investment that the Red Bull campaign did. If you're going to try to do some sort of a stunt and do some experiential marketing, I'll leave you with 3 pieces of advice. First, make sure that it aligns perfectly with your brand. Make it very authentic and brand relevant. Red Bull did that. In this case, 3M did that. They did it well when they hoisted a truck high above the ground using nothing but their super glue. So that was a great demonstrable way to show the confidence that they have in their product. KFC, not so much. KFC tried a stunt a few years back where they wanted to make the largest man-made advertisement that could be seen from space. It was newsworthy. It got them a Guinness Book of World Record, but it really had nothing to do with greasy chicken, and so it didn't get the legs that the other campaigns have. Secondly, good experiential stunts do require some paid media and a good PR strategy to support it. It can't just be viral or just be digital. Jello's pudding drop after the Super Bowl didn't just happen in San Francisco. Sure, that was the city that received 1 million free cups of pudding, and people in San Francisco enjoyed that. But it was also a TV commercial that aired following the Super Bowl game. Uh, if we remember the Old Spice Smells Like a Man video, most people hold that up as a viral success, but that too received millions of dollars of cinema and TV advertising as well. So make sure that your stunts receive proper paid support. And finally, I don't know if you're one of the 45 million people who have watched this YouTube video from TNT, but it's a pretty awesome stunt that they did. And what made the difference from it being a really cool idea that a handful of people in Belgium saw versus what has become a YouTube sensation is how well it was recorded and edited so that it could be shared with the rest of the world. So I strongly suggest that if you're going to do a stunt, pay the extra bucks for a good videographer and a good editor so that all of your stunts and your events can be recorded and shared easily in the digital space. My parting thought to you is a word of caution. We've had over 50 years to figure out how mass advertising works. We are well acquainted with those rules and those regulations, and we understand what people's attitudes are about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. But for the most part, with all these new owned media assets like mobile and social and video and experiential, we're still living in the Wild West, which means that there's going to be inherent risks involved. If a multi-million-dollar TV campaign doesn't work very well, it's regrettable, but it's kind of a private family affair. It stays within the company. But if you screw up in the digital space, sometimes some bad things can happen. Here's an example of a couple of years ago that Adult Swim was launching a new movie, and to help launch it, they did a stunt by hiding little LED displays throughout Boston, and that resulted in a bomb scare, which sent in the SWAT team. It resulted in arrests. The CEO had to resign. The company got a multi-million-dollar fine. It was bad, but yet we shouldn't let these bad examples deter our enthusiasm for this. We have to be realistic about what we can accomplish, be realistic in our expectations about what we will receive as a return, and we have to encourage types of experimentation as we challenge the status quo. Because if we all just stay the same, we're going to wake up one day soon and realize that the rest of the world has passed us by, much like Blockbuster did in my earlier example. So those are my thoughts on how brands can be thinking about new media and alternative marketing tactics to stay relevant in 2013 and beyond. I thank you for your time.